3. Just put Notts at the start of your WhatsApp message. Now, all last week, we were counting down to the final ever performance of Nottingham's own dancing legends, ice dancing legends that they are, Torvill and Dino. Their Last Dance tour, marking their 50th anniversary, concluded. Where the story began, really, back in 1975, Olympic golds, world and European titles, and a hit TV show followed. And now Jane Torvill and Christopher Dean have hung up their skates for good. Their final ever dance took place on Saturday night at the National Ice Centre. Now, our reporter, Jake Garner, went along to see it and to speak to the pair, as well as the fans that have followed their career for 5 decades.
You know what? It felt really good. I felt
feel
that
good.
The performance went well,
Yeah.
and the audience were amazing. And so for us to be able to bow out on a high like that, it was wonderful.
Please take your seats. The show will begin in 3 minutes.
I'm Mark Enretti, I'm a professional skater, and I have been, I think, one of Torvill and Dean's greatest fans for the last 30 years at least. I mean, like so many other British skaters, I literally started ice skating because of Jane Torvill and Christopher Dean, and I posted on social media earlier today because I had remembered my first kind of sighting and acknowledgement of them. It was a BBC News report pertaining to the return to the Olympics in 1993, that was. And I've avidly studied and obsessed over their every move ever since, and so I feel, I don't think it's quite sunk in yet that I have been able to be a part of this somewhat historic evening. On some occasion, I think that I owe them everything, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have skated, and if I wouldn't have skated, I wouldn't have met my wife, and if I hadn't, met my wife, I wouldn't have my kids, and if I didn't do Dancing on Ice, the job that essentially they facilitated, then I wouldn't have my house, and to some degree, they're kind of responsible for every aspect of my current way of life. So it's enormous beyond comprehension what they have done for me and so many.
Yeah. And this is the perfect way to end it, really, isn't it? A 50-year career, started in Nottingham and finished right here at the National Ice Centre.
Job done, and done sublimely.
I think they'll just live on forever, and I hope they get knighted, and I hope they're recognised for all the joy they bring to all of these people.
We're just so privileged to have been able to be here on the final ever performance. When we heard it was happening, we just felt that this was the one. If we were going to come, this is when we needed to be here. So, Bolero is before I was born, but it's just ingrained. I think you hear that and you instantly think of Torvill and Dean, and it's just so special to have that as, they are national treasures.
They've brought it right up there. I mean, I don't think there's anyone to touch them, even in all these years. And what they've brought to Nottingham, so much in the way of tourism and the ethos, showing that, what a lovely city it is. I think it's just unbelievable what they've been able to do for the city. I mean, even when the Olympics were on, they carried the torch here at the stadium. So amazing. It is quite sad, but just unbelievable.
Well, when Bolero happened, I think I was 10. And I do remember watching it on TV, and even though I was really young, I do, like, that music just does actually something to me. Do you know what I mean? It does make me think, it makes me think of them straight away, and like taking me back to my 10-year-old self.
And you're going to hear it live.
I know, and so I might cry. I've got tissues with me. I might cry because it's the whole atmosphere. I imagine it's going to be just really amazing, and yeah, just really looking forward to it.
This is Bolero.
How does it feel now that the tour and 50 years has come to an end?
Well, yeah, it's epic, isn't
as
it?
you said, a lot of work went into the tour. We were rehearsing up in Aberdeen for 3 or 4 weeks in sort of April time, March time, and at that point you start with nothing, and at some point there is a show and everyone realises, yes, we have a show now.
But it's 50 years in the making.
And this is 50 years in the making, trying to tell our story.
And fitting that it finishes here in Nottingham.
It had to finish here in Nottingham,
Yes.
hometown, sacred ground out there, where the original Nottingham Ice Stadium was, and now the Nottingham Arena, that we're able to be finishing our career here, full circle.
Jane, your thoughts?
Well, yeah, it's so nice that somewhere out there we must be walking on the original or skating on the original ice rink, because it's all on the same grounds, even though it's a much bigger arena. And we're so proud that we could come back and do it all here. We would never dreamed of that when we first started.
And last one from me. I know it's so soon after coming off the ice, literally just skating off the ice. What are you going to do now, the pair of you?
We'll be talking on the phone every day as normal, but we have some other projects that we'll do in the future, but not performing on the ice together.
Although
Are we going to go and have a little skate on a public session?
I've asked the manager
noticed?
here, when the ice is not being used, can we come up and skate? And he said, yeah, of course you can. So it'll just be for us.
Just not quite hanging up the skates yet, but having a personal skate together.
It's just for us, and
I think we'll miss it.
Well, we'll always come back to Nottingham.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a rink named after us. We've got a tram that we can ride on. And so you will see us on the streets of Nottingham. And if you do, just say hi.
Incredible evening. Memorable for so many people, emotional for so many people as well. One of the people who were there on Saturday night, Carol Ann Henderson, actually used to work with Christopher Dean in the police force in the late 70s. She's going to be on very soon. Speaking of moments to be enjoyed, we're marking the final ever performance of Nottingham's ice dancing legends, Torvill and Dino, after they took to the ice together for the last time over the weekend, right here in Nottingham at the Arena. It was the final stop of their Last Dance tour, which concluded where the journey began 50 years ago. Now, they've had a tram and an ice rink named after them this week, and in the build-up to their, big finale, fans came from all over the world, really, to see their Last Dance. One of those fans, Carol Ann Henderson, who actually used to work with Christopher Dean in the police force in the late 70s, joins me now to tell me about that last night and to share her memories of working with Chris. Good morning.
Good morning, Dino.
How was Saturday night for you?
Oh, well, I'd already seen the show in April, but Saturday was completely different. From the moment it started, the crowd just seemed to gather them up with love. When they very first came out, it was absolutely a thunderous applause. And at the very end, a standing ovation, and the applause just went on and on. Certainly brought a tear to my eye. And it was just amazing. It was like a completely different show because of the way the audience were reacting to this last performance.
It's funny because when you said you'd seen it earlier in the tour, and then understandably a very different thing, because every single time they skated was closer to that last ever, wasn't it? So every blade movement was one movement closer to the finale, to the final curtain, to it not happening again.
Absolutely, and even with each dancer that came out, the applause was different because they all knew, like you say, that was their last dance. That was the last time you were going to see that particular item, and it was just building and building and building until the very end when they came out and performed Bolero. And what you've got to remember, these two are pensioners. Yes. They've been doing this for 50 years. You name me any other athlete that is competing like that, at that standard, at that age. They're amazing, absolutely amazing.
I know, and because I was very fortunate, I've spoken to them on a few occasions. One of the things that I think mattered so much to them was that nobody ever saw them skate and felt shortchanged, because there is a level of expectation especially with the finest sort of sports people in the world, that what you've always seen is what you will always see. And I know they were quite sort of self-conscious of the fact that they didn't ever want to feel like they weren't doing what people expected of them.
Oh, well, they can rest assured that's not happened. We've all been every time they got on the ice and skated, it's just like a magical show each time. And it's unbelievable the amount of talent they've got. But then when I was listening to the stuff that Christopher and Jane had done before, when he was reading the list out, I absolutely didn't know that, sort of the French stars that he'd coached and all the other things that he'd done. And that was amazing too, because it seems like they've been around forever, but there must have been the odd times when they haven't been around, and this is what he was doing as well.
Sure. Now, like many people in Nottingham, you followed their career from day one. How does it feel for you knowing that they've hung their skates up for good?
Sad, but that we're not going to see them again. But at the end of the day, they've given us so much, so I shouldn't feel sad. I should be grateful that I've managed to see them so many times. I watched them right back in the early days, and even though Chris was on my shift, I didn't always tell him that I'd been to see him. And I remember one incident, and he had to use all his leave up for his competitions.
Wow.
And I think he was going to compete in Europe, and he was short on leave, and he went to see our chief superintendent, the late Alf Bowley, and asked if he could have an extra day off. And when Alf found out what it was, he gave him a week off and then put him on the Old Market Square, so that instead of working 24-hour shifts, he just had to work, I think, from 8 in the morning till midnight, because that's when the Old Market Square was covered by police officers.
Amazing.
Like Tug Wilson. And so he from then onwards, he wasn't on my shift anymore. But he was such an unassuming gentleman. He never said, boasted or anything. There was none of that with him. It was all just he was just a normal, everyday bloke. And that, I think I remember that about them. They're just down-to-earth people. There's no grandeur. I mean, I went to see him dancing nights with my youngest daughter, who's also a police officer, and we met him. I said to Karen, "Can you give him my regards?" And she said, "Oh, wait a minute." And then she came back. She said, "He'll see you after the show."
Amazing.
So Poppy and I got to meet him after the show again, and just like old times. So there's no attitude with him. He's just ordinary, everyday, lovely man, lovely, and Jane, of course.
Isn't it funny how, when you, and like I said, we had a chat with them every day on the show last week where they were talking about many things. And one of the things that always comes, you always come across whenever you speak to anybody who does any sports or professional level is the hours of dedication that you have to put in and the way you have to kind of live your life to make sure that you're at that peak all the time. And to be doing the job that Chris was doing back in the 70s and also be so dedicated to, and committed to a career as a skater. I mean, that's amazing.
Well, yeah, you think that he'd finish nights on 6 o'clock in the morning and go off down to the ice stadium to practice afterwards, or before he came on nights, or on mornings. Before he's come on mornings, he's perhaps had a skate, because I think they had the keys to the stadium. And, that the dedication that they put in, still now, as you said, that we're up in Aberdeen working to get the show created. And most of us have got our feet up by then.
Yeah.
I'm only a few years older than him, and I retired last year. But where did they get the strength? Where did they get the get up and go to do it? It's phenomenal. And one of the things, I've said it so many times. Why have they not been damed and knighted?
Well, you never know, do you? That's the thing, You never know what's around the corner. But, you can't go anywhere in the world when you say you're from Nottingham without Robin Hood, Brian Clough and Torvill and Dean getting mentioned.
Absolutely.
And not necessarily in that order, to be honest. But, they've certainly done some great favours for us over the years. So I'm glad you had a great time. I would imagine, I know Jane and Chris were saying how emotional it would have been, they expected it was going to be for them. And we're very much avoiding that as a subject. They said they were trying not to think about it. But I would imagine for so many people like yourself who as you sort of walked away from the arena on Saturday night, in that frame of mind that's not something you'll ever see again.
No. There was a couple next to me. They were in their 80s and they used to perform at ballroom dancing at a very high level. And they were in tears like me. They were in absolute tears all around us. People were just dabbing their eyes. And this is the end of an era, but let's hang on to the memories. You can't take our memories away.
No, you're absolutely right. Lovely to talk to you. I'm glad you had a fabulous time, even though emotional, and thank you for telling us the stories about working with Chris as well.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much. Carol Ann Henderson there, who not only went to see that final dance at the weekend, but used to work with Christopher Dean in the police force in the late 70s. Here at the arena now, the pair have had, obviously, the tram named after them. Olympic gold. They've got an ice rink with their name on it too. Earlier we heard from Carol Ann Henderson, who used to work with Christopher Dean in the police force whilst he was on the rise to ice dancing stardom in the late 70s. Time to hear now from someone who knew Jane Torvill from a very young age and actually went to the same school together. Geraldine Gray was there on Saturday night and joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning.
How was it, Geraldine?
Oh, it was absolutely amazing. As Carol Ann said earlier, you could just tell it was really something special. All the routines sparkled. I'm sure they turned the volume up and put better lighting on. There were cameras all over the place filming it. And you could see at the end of every routine, including Jane and Chris's, that they were really moved because that was going to be the last time they ever did that routine. And everybody was amazing. It was brilliant seeing Jane and Chris recreate their skating from earlier years, but it was also fantastic to see all that amazing young talent that they were also showcasing. So it was just a night to remember, and so fitting. The last performance was in Nottingham.
I know, I think that was super important. And as I said when I was talking to Carol Ann, to know that every time you saw that routine, that was the last time you would see that routine be done by Jane and Chris.
Yeah. You could just tell it. You could just say that. I mean, I don't know how they kept skating. It was so emotional. It really was.
Well, that's what everybody says. And you know, I think, you know, Jane and Chris themselves, as I said, you know, I got to chat to them quite a few times over last week. And one of the things that they constantly sort of said was, we're not thinking about it. But I mean, how can you not when you're in that situation, you're in that arena and the crowd are reacting in the way that, you know, you all did. And if you could tell that very obvious difference from either, you know, earlier in the tour or from the start of that show on Saturday night and that tension building, then I'm sure they felt it as well.
Yes, definitely. It was an amazing night. It was just super special.
Now, am I right, you in thinking you knew Jane, you went to the same school?
Well, I went to the same school as her. I wouldn't say that I knew her. We were in a different year. She was a year below me. But at school, we just never knew how talented she was. I imagine her, obviously, her form and her friendship group knew, but we had got no idea. I played in the hockey teams while I was there, and I remember our sports coach saying that, we've got a really good player in the third year, Jane Torvill, but she can't join the teams because she goes skating. And that's all she said. And actually, at the time that Jane was going skating, she was the British junior champion for pair skating at age 14.
Wow.
And I often used to sit next to her on the bus on the way home because the bus that I got home carried on through to Huntingdon Street where the ice rink was.
Right.
So she would go after school. No doubt there was skating before school and after school, winning these big prizes. And the school made no show of it, didn't celebrate it. And I just think that shows you such a lot about Jane Torvill. I gather, a modest person, quiet, private, but so dedicated in building her craft. And it just comes over in the way that she and Chris talk together. And Carol Ann said they're local people. I mean, Jane went to school in Clifton. She went to work in the Market Square at the Norwich Union. And they didn't get any sponsorship until 78, 79 from the city. I mean, up to then, they were training outside of the public sessions.
Sure.
So how they managed to get to 1980 Europeans, well, it was through fundraising, I think, from both the Post and Radio Nottingham.
What was it like when you saw her skate for the first time? When we all kind of saw them skate as a figure skating pair. What was it like when you saw that and then realised that's what she's been doing?
I've been thinking back to the first time we realised that, gosh, that's Jane, who I sat on the bus with. I think it must have been in 78, 79, when they were building up for the 1980, I think it was World Championships or Europeans. It would have been about then, and you see them on the rink and you're thinking, oh, yes, of course, she went skating. That's what she was doing instead of playing hockey.
Yeah.
It was just tremendous. And obviously from those early routines, I was watching some of them yesterday on YouTube. Like a lot of people in Nottingham, I just watched everything that we could that she was in. All of the practice sessions on the television, the three elements, all the way through. My dad actually thought that the Barnum routine was best and that they should have done that at the Olympics. But I remember in 1984 it was delayed for some reason. I mean, I was awake in bed watching it about 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was so nerve-wracking because there'd been rumours of this little bit that's not right, this little bit, and they just made it so nerve-wracking for us. But then, of course, it was flawless.
Yeah, wasn't it just though? Wasn't it just? Yeah. I mean, what an absolute treat to be there on Saturday night and see that. And it sounds like you had the most emotional, the most incredible, the most unforgettable evening.
We did, and as Chris said, it was 50 years in the making, and it was such a unique way of presenting it. It was almost like an evening with Chris and Jane. Right. Oh, and by the way, we're going to skate a bit for you. It was just brilliant. I mean, to sort of see the pictures and how they had to when they first met the coach, she had them standing in hold for a few minutes to make sure that they were doing as they were told. That was just brilliant. Yeah. And how the routines were built up. And I remember hearing that they'd gone to Nottingham, to Radio 4, to the Radio Nottingham, to the record
yes, that's true,
there.
Yeah. So
that was just amazing.
Yes, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yes, but, it is.
Well, look, I'm glad you had an amazing evening. I've no doubt you've got some great photos as well somewhere.
Photos? Oh, yes, took loads of photos.
I thought you might have done.
Yeah.
But listen, thank you for coming on today, Geraldine. It's great to talk to you.
Not at all. It's been a pleasure to champion our champions. And like everybody said, they need to get the Dame and the knighthood. Somebody must be putting them forward to it.
Watch this space. If not, Geraldine, you do it. It's good to talk to you, all right?
I'm sure I'll be in a long line of people.
Thank you so much for coming on.
It's been lovely to talk to you.
Thank you. You take care. Have a great Monday.
Thank you.